Reporting from News Frontline Jamaica Desk, here to speak about the 18th general elections in Jamaica since 1944, the universal adult suffrage, which gave citizens the right to exercise their vote. This election being seen as the most different yet. COVID-19 emerged with the incumbent Jamaica Labour Party retaining government for another 5-year term. Subsequently winning by what can be described as a landslide 49 to 14 seats in the 63 constituency of Jamaica. This elections can be described as the one most focused, perhaps since independence, focused on recovering and building stronger. The Jamaica Labour Party's tagline subsequently of the Prime Minister, Andrew Michael Holness, was recovering back stronger, announcing the fact that despite the victory, we are in challenging times, and now more than ever as a country, we would have to work together to get our economy back on track. Subsequently, as a result, the Jamaica Labour Party, led by Andrew Holness, would have campaigned mainly on their achievements, citing that this has been the best performing government in a 4-year term since their 2016 victory of one seat, 32 to 31. Since the past 10 years, best performing, that's what they campaigned on. While the opposition, People's National Party, which has traditionally held a long-standing in leadership, previously holding for 18 years consecutively between 1989 and 2007. The PNP therefore campaigns naturally with their socialist policies and reforms and programs for persons of the lower class. There was many interesting programs such as rent to own, which allow persons the ability to ultimately own more of their own homes through the rent scheme. There was a lot of ludicrous, trying to implement things, trying to buster around, giving persons a grant monthly to help to pay utility bills during this difficult time. So there was a lot of debate in the middle, as we kind of saw, with the government basically saying these things aren't possible right now in this pandemic. And subsequently, the government would have continued a robust campaign and measured of what they have done. They could have implemented how they've successfully built 20,000 homes in their 4-year term, which is larger than the PNP has ever built in a 4-year term, which stands at 5,000. They boasted how they've achieved a record consecutive 14 terms of economic growth, which only stopped March 2020, citing coronavirus, and the PNP has no such record to show. And so this is a very, very interesting election, which resulted in what can be called as a landslide. The Jamaica Labour Party ultimately getting 78% of the votes. And we repeat 49 to 14 preliminary results, and we will wait on the recount to even see if there'll be more. However, what we can definitely see is that perhaps this interesting the takeaway from this election is perhaps we are starting to see a shift away from traditional safe seats and traditional party loyalty, as what the most interesting takeaways from this election, where possibly most political commentators were expecting a victory for the Jamaica Labour Party, albeit narrowly. The most surprising things have been how what can be described as safe seats, strongholds, if you might, fell on both sides. Stronghold parties. If we can look at most senior members, the most shocking thing, senior members of the opposition, PNP, fell. Peter Bunting, Wickham McNeil, their seats with the JLP has never held in parish of Westmoreland to the left. And this election, they have taken all three. And this is definitely an indication that if at least the younger generation that is now coming out, who are voting for the very, very first time, these people are looking at performance. And as one political commentator said, the PNP had a very good campaign. However, we are in very uncharted times, and to continue to steer us through this crisis, perhaps persons felt more comfortable keeping it in the hands of the Jamaica Labour Party, at least for another tenure, because, and as cited especially by the health minister, in a crisis, no is not the time we want to change hands and wonder who could do better with this pandemic. And definitely this has been a campaign, the campaign election that has been called since the 13th of August, culminating on the 3rd of September 2020, has been very much focused on management of our economy, management of the pandemic. Who could handle the pandemic better? Should we have ordered a lockdown? Are we contact tracing enough? And so definitely this was an election for the books, because ultimately the JLP had a landslide over the PNP. This now ultimately has to lead the People's National Party into a sense of rebuilding, to wonder how they can come back. Because ultimately at the moment, the Jamaica Labour Party is producing tangible results on the table. And definitely they have a charismatic leader at the helm. Most people have cited, in fact, as I draw near to my conclusion, that the People's National Party have excellent members of parliament working in constituencies on the ground. However, the leader of that party, Dr. Peter Phillips, isn't seen as popular nationally to be a prime minister ultimately. And ultimately, they have gone with a more youthful prime minister who can definitely be seen as leading us to the future, as definitely Dr. Phillips is seen as on the older aging side, now 70. And so definitely now the Labour Party has a big task on their hand. I would posit and say that despite this overwhelming victory, perhaps the pressure is